All right, deep divers, ready to really get good at debates, A&D meetings. I mean, who doesn't want to just own the room, right?
Own it, yeah.
Today, we're using just one source, but it's packed with good stuff. It's all about communication that really gets results.
Exactly.
But, full disclosure, the source itself is, well, a little dry.
A bit textbooky.
Yeah, that's it, textbooky. But that's what we're here for, right? We'll pull out all the practical stuff, the gems you can actually use.
That's the deep dive way.
It kicks off with that classic debate structure.
Yeah.
The statement, then arguing for it or against it, all timed, judge makes the call.
Right. Pretty familiar setup.
Exactly. But let's skip the boring details. Why does this structure even matter?
Because it makes you think differently, forces you to get your thoughts straight, figure out what the other side will say, and how to prove your points.
It's like prepping for every possible angle.
Exactly. And those skills, they're gold, not just for debates, but for anything where you got to convince someone.
So it's like a mental framework for, I don't know, winning any argument.
That's a good way to put it. Imagine you're at work, pitching a project. Using this structure, you wouldn't just be listing ideas. You'd be ready for questions, pushback, the whole deal.
So you're not just hoping to win, you're setting yourself up to win.
That's the idea.
Okay, I'm seeing how this could be useful. What about those different roles in a debate? There's got to be more to it than just for and against, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. The source breaks it down into specific roles, each with its own kind of challenge. Now, you might be thinking, wait, I'm not trying to be on a debate team here. But stick with me. These roles, they actually apply to stuff you do every day.
I'm intrigued. So let's put the listener in the shoes of, say, the first affirmative speaker. How do you grab everyone's attention right off the bat?
It's a lot like leading a meeting or giving a presentation, actually. How do you make sure everyone's on board from the start? How do you get your main points across early?
So it's about setting the tone, making a strong first impression, and kind of guiding the direction of the whole thing, whether it's a formal debate or just a meeting at work.
You got it. And each role has its own hurdles to overcome, which is why mastering them can make you a much better communicator overall.
Okay, things are getting interesting. Now let's talk about brainstorming. The source mentions two techniques, Sveltire and pop beans.
These are like frameworks for thinking, ways to approach a complex topic from different angles, really useful for generating ideas, forming arguments, and making smart decisions.
Right, so Sveltire stands for social, political, historical, economic, legal, technological, international, and religious.
A lot to unpack there.
It is, but the point is to look at a topic through each of these lenses.
Exactly. You get a much deeper understanding that way, seeing all the different sides and potential consequences.
They use the example of reservation in India,
hmm
and looking at it from, say, the international angle, they ask, is reservation making India less competitive globally?
Now, that's a good question.
Right, it makes you think.
And that's the whole point of Svelter. It pushes you beyond just surface level thinking. And you can use it for anything, really.
Right, like a business decision, a social issue, even a personal dilemma.
Yeah.
Anything that needs a good, well-rounded look before you jump in.
It's a great tool for making informed choices.
All right, then there's pop beans. People, objects, place, behavior, event, actions, nature, and society.
Another set of lenses. Yeah.
Similar concept to Sveltire, but with a different focus.
Pop beans is great for abstract concepts or for getting creative with solutions. You start making connections you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
The example in the source is racism against black people. And just looking at the objects lens, they bring up black hole.
Interesting connection there.
Yeah, a black hole is where gravity is so strong, nothing escapes. So how does that relate to racism?
Exactly. It's about making those unexpected connections, getting you to think differently, which is key for both communicating and problem solving.
Makes you think about how racism can feel inescapable, like it's pulling you in.
Powerful imagery. And these techniques are all about seeing things from new angles.
Okay, so we've got frameworks for structuring our thoughts, for coming up with ideas, but where does meeting mastery come in?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. The source argues that the real magic happens when you take debate rebuttal techniques and you use them in the workplace, especially meetings.
Like a secret weapon for meetings.
You could say that, but you have to be smart about it. You don't want to come across as aggressive, right?
Right. Got to be assertive, but not a jerk.
Exactly. The goal is to contribute, to clarify, to make sure everyone's on the same page and that decisions are being made for the right reasons.
So what are some of these rebuttal techniques we can use in a meeting setting? I'm ready to unlock my secret weapon.
Well, we can start with something called information distortions. They're basically inaccuracies or misleading statements that can throw a whole meeting off track.
Ooh, I'm intrigued. We'll have to dive into some examples of those after the break.
Definitely. There are a few key ones you'll want to be able to spot.
Okay, so before the break, we were getting into those information distortions. Things that can really mess up a meeting if no one catches them.
Right, and probably the most basic one is a simple assertion. Someone states something as fact, but it's just not true.
And in a debate, you just call them out, right?
Pretty much. But in a meeting, you got to be more tactful.
It's like being a fact checker, but without being a jerk.
Exactly. Instead of saying, nope, you're wrong, you could say, I think the data is actually showing a different trend. Or there's a report I saw that suggests.
Oh, I like that. So you're not making it personal, you're just bringing in other info.
Right, giving an alternative without putting anyone on the spot.
Subtle but effective. So what other distortions should we watch out for?
A common one is the false dichotomy. That's when someone acts like there are only two options, when really there might be tons.
Oh, I see that all the time. Like, we either cut costs or launch the new product.
Classic example.
But what if you could, like, streamline some stuff and D, make room for the new product? Option 3.
There you go. Recognizing the false dichotomy opens up the whole discussion. And people appreciate that you're not just stuck in either thinking.
Makes you look like a real problem solver.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got assertion and false dichotomy. Anything else?
This next one is a little trickier, but so important because it affects how decisions get made. Cognitive bias.
Oh, yeah, cognitive bias. Refresh my memory on that.
It's basically a mental shortcut our brains take, which sometimes leads to bad judgments. There's actually like over 180 of them that researchers have found.
Oh, that many.
Yeah, the human brain is a weird thing. But for meetings, let's just focus on one that pops up a lot, the ostrich effect.
The ostrich effect, like burying your head in the sand.
Yep, that's it. It's when people avoid bad news, even if they need that info to make a good decision.
I've seen that so many times. Everyone just wants to act like things are fine, even when there are, like, warning signs flashing everywhere.
Exactly. And if you can spot the ostrich effect happening, you can try to get people talking about the real issues, even the uncomfortable ones. Leads to way better outcomes in the long run.
Makes sense. So we've got these rebuttal techniques to deal with distortions and biases, but what about just general meeting tips? How to really rock those things?
Well, preparation is huge EE. Sounds obvious, but a lot of people walk in totally unprepared.
I'm all about preparation. It shows you respect everyone's time, and you can actually contribute something useful.
Exactly. And on the topic of respect, there's active listening. Phones away, people. Active listening is more than just being polite. It's about really hearing what's being said, understanding different viewpoints, and then finding those spots where you can add value.
That's like a superpower in meetings. You build connections, you pick up on things you'd have missed otherwise. Oh, and while you're listening, take notes.
Love it.
Yeah.
Shows you're engaged, and it helps you remember what was said so you can follow up on things later.
So prepare beforehand, listen actively, take notes. That sounds like a solid plan.
Right.
But what about actually speaking up? How do you make sure your voice gets heard?
The source actually quotes Anna Bullender, who's the head of PR at Badger Maps. She says, think about the topics beforehand, jot down your own ideas, what you think should happen next, anything you want to bring up. Having those notes will make you way more confident, so you can focus on the discussion, not on trying to remember what you wanted to say.
I like that. It's like being proactive. Coming in prepared to contribute, not just react to what others are saying. But what if you're not the type to, dominate the conversation?
You don't have to be. Margaret DeCurlish, she's president and CEO of Vitech Technologies. She has some great advice for that. She says, don't try to be the loudest person in the room. Look for your opening to show your value. A good leader will make sure everyone gets a chance to speak. It's totally fine to be the person who doesn't talk a ton, but when they DO, it's something smart and helpful. Leaders love that.
Quality over quantity.
Yep. And speaking of quality, the source actually says that introverts might have an advantage in meetings.
Wait, really? Why would that be?
Well, Jonathan Dehn, he wrote a book called Drumbeat Productivity, and he puts it like this. Most meetings are just people trying to show off. The loud ones usually win. But here's the thing. While they're all busy doing that, the introvert can actually think about what's being said. So by the time everyone else is done talking, they might have a really unique idea, a different way to look at things. Speaking last can be a really good way to get noticed.
So it's like being the quiet observer can be a strength.
Totally. You don't have to be the first one to talk, but when you do, make it count.
I like that. Make it count. All right, but what if you disagree with someone?
Hmm.
How do you handle that without, things getting heated?
The source really stresses constructive disagreement. Instead of shutting someone down, try saying something like, I hadn't thought of it that way. Can you tell me more about that? And then maybe that makes sense, but have you considered?
So you're turning an argument into a conversation.
Exactly. You're respecting their view, but also bringing in your own. Much more productive and way less likely to start a fight.
This is awesome. We've covered so much. Debate structures, those biases, meeting strategies. It's amazing how it's all connected.
It really shows how important communication skills are, no matter what you're doing. Whether you're debating, leading a meeting, even just having a conversation, these skills are key.
But deep divers, remember, knowing this stuff is only half the battle.
Right, you got to use it. So here's your challenge. Next time you're in a meeting, really pay attention. Listen for those distortions, those biases, and use what we've talked about to make the meeting better.
You might be surprised how much of a difference it makes. And we've only just touched on those fascinating cognitive biases.
There's a whole bunch of them out there, and it's really cool to learn about.
We've included a link to a full list in the show notes. Definitely check it out.
It'll give you a much better understanding of how your own mind works and how other people think.
Which can help you make better decisions, avoid common mistakes, and even be more persuasive when you're communicating.
It's like a secret weapon for your brain.
So deep divers, go explore. Uncover those biases, question your assumptions, and keep working on those communication skills. The more you learn, the better you'll be at, well, just about everything that involves other humans.
And who knows, you might even start looking forward to those meetings and debates, seeing them as a chance to use your new skills.
Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those conversations flowing. It's really amazing how much we got out of just that one source. We started with, the structure of a formal debate. And now we're talking about practical tips for running meetings and even some psychology with those cognitive biases.
Yeah, it really shows how connected all these communication skills are. It doesn't matter if you're in a debate, a boardroom, wherever, being able to think clearly, explain your ideas well, and work with others, it's all super important.
And the cool thing is, these are skills you can always get better at.
Right. Oh, absolutely. It's like a muscle. The more you use them, the stronger they get.
Exactly. So what's a good way to, practice these skills in real life?
Just start paying more attention to how people communicate. Listen to how they build their arguments, what words they choose, and see if you can spot any biases that might be affecting their decisions.
It's like you're a communication detective, always looking for clues.
That's a good way to put it.
And speaking of clues, we barely scratched the surface with those cognitive biases.
Oh, there's so much more to learn there. It's a huge field of study. We couldn't possibly go through all 188 of them here, but
But we did put a link in the show notes to a list of all of them.
yeah, definitely check that out.
It's really interesting stuff. It'll help you understand your own mind better and how other people think.
Which can help you with, well, everything really. Making smarter choices, not falling into the same traps, even being more persuasive when you talk to people.
Powerful stuff. So deep divers, here's your homework. Go explore that list of biases, ask yourself some tough questions, and keep practicing those communication skills.
The more you learn, the better you'll be at, well, pretty much anything that involves interacting with other people.
Exactly. And hey, maybe you'll even start looking forward to those meetings and debates. See them as a chance to show off your new skills.
I hope so.
All right, deep divers, that's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those minds sharp and those conversations flowing.